It's a movie day.
Hey friends, I'm Vlogtavia and I'm in my PJs because my work flooded. So what better time to talk about movies than when you have the day off and are gonna spend the whole thing in your PJs? Alan Menken's works are phenomenal, even though he isn't exactly what I would specifically classify as a film score composer. His works tend towards musical theater, but they're still just as beautiful and dramatic and full of wonder as the other names on this list. And the music to most of my favorite musical movies growing up was, in fact, composed by him. Notable scores include Little Shop of Horrors, Beauty and the Beast, Tangled, Enchanted, Pocahontas, and Hunchback of Notre Dame. With what I've heard of Thomas Newman's music, I really want to use the word minimal, and not as in the subset of contemporary classical music, minimalism, which is largely based off of repetition and patterns, but in that he knows how to put just little enough to suggest a mood. He's very skilled at writing only what needs to be there, but nothing that would be too overpowering to wash out the drama of the actual film. He also is really fond of using a lot of modal borrowing in his scores. Notable scores include American Beauty, The Shawshank Redemption, WALL-E, Finding Nemo, and Revolutionary Road. Howard Shore is a Canadian composer with dozens of films under his belt, but none so recognized or revered as the music from The Lord of the Rings. You'd be hard-pressed to find a lyric soprano who isn't in love with the music of the Lord of the Rings movies. As a singer, I always appreciate when a composer uses a lot of vocal and choral texture in their works, because I want to sing them. Notable scores include The Silence of the Lambs, High Fidelity, the Twilight movie Eclipse, the Hobbit trilogy, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Okay, bear with me on this one. Olafur Arnalds is an Icelandic composer and performer who writes primarily for piano and strings. And here's where those of you who might be familiar with his work might say, hey, he's never composed a score to a full-length film before. To which I would say, you are correct. However, I'm putting him on this list because the majority of his compositions sound exactly like film score. Not to mention that recently he has composed the original score for the British TV show Broadchurch, which is awesome. And also, he's my favorite ever, so Max Richter is a German composer who's only been writing scores since 2003, and they're primarily for foreign films or films that aren't released in the US. So he's not a very recognizable name here, but I put him on this list because I love his compositional style. His music is so beautiful. Most of his works could easily be called melancholic or bittersweet. Generally, starting in a minor key, they happen to flip back and forth between relative major and minor tonalities. Music major speak. And the relationship between the triads on Do and Lay in minor is one of my favorite musical relationships to use. Musical relationships. It sounds weirder than I thought it did. Notable works include Sarah's Key, Womb, and Lore, but also check out the Blue Notebooks and 24 postcards in full color because they're so pretty. Dario Marianelli is an Italian composer and master of what I would call the sad creep. His strength lies in his compositions for piano and strings, but like mostly everyone else on this list, is fine with using full orchestra texture. Composing music that is generally tonal, Marianelli's music is most recognizable to me by his frequent use of modal borrowing, which I mentioned a couple people back. For those of you who weren't music majors in school, I'm gonna put a little diagram at the end of this video to help people understand exactly what I mean when I say modal borrowing. Notable scores include the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, V for Vendetta, Atonement, the 2011 Jane Eyre, and Anna Karenina. I kind of didn't want to put Hans Zimmer on this list, partially because the bwah from the Inception soundtrack has gotten so recognizable just as the butt of a joke. His compositional style is certainly very interesting to the listener, but it's not music that I would choose to listen to outside of the film. Zimmer is very, very skilled at adding suspense and drama to action movies, but action movies just aren't my favorite thing to watch, and that's probably why I'm not so fond of his scores, except for The Lion King, because that's awesome. Notable scores include The Lion King, Inception, Pirates of the Caribbean, the Warner Brothers Sherlock movies, and Interstellar. Holy crap, John Williams. I think I would get in trouble if I tried to finish this list without putting John Williams on here because, oh my god, he's crazy. By crazy, I mean he's written a lot of music. John Williams' music has been defining the genre of film score since the 1970s. Generally writing for full orchestra, Williams' range spans from the sadness of Schindler's List to the wonder of E.T. and the magic of Harry Potter and the suspense of Jaws. Notable scores include everything. He did everything. Herman is best remembered for scoring most of Alfred Hitchcock's most notable films. His scores have a way of achieving this subtle brilliance in quieter moments and filling an entire audience with intense emotion in the profound sweep of his scores. His works really feel like they're going somewhere and escalate with the scene in perfect harmony. Notable scores include Psycho, Vertigo, The Birds, North by Northwest, and Citizen Kane. Prolific French composer Alexandre Desplat has composed the scores to some of my favorite movies. He seems to be most skilled for writing for the very creepy or the very whimsical, or sometimes both. While Desplat does utilize modal borrowing and some tonicization in his works, his compositional style is generally tonal and, in some ways, atmospheric. Notable works of his include Fantastic Mr. Fox, Grand Budapest Hotel, Harry Potter 7, both parts, The King's Speech, and The Imitation Game. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you like any of these same composers, give this video a like, or tell me who I missed in the comments, because I'm sure it's a bunch, because this is just my opinion. If you want to learn something about music theory, then keep watching and I'm going to explain what modal borrowing means.